All right, great. Well, then we're going to go ahead and kick it off. We'll welcome everybody to the Medicare Basics webinar for Balanced Wealth and Simple Medicare. This evening, in addition to Shaun Carney and Ryan Mannen, who are staples here, we also have Kevin Shay joining us. He is he's an independent insurance broker with Simple Medicare. He's been doing this for years, an expert that many of us on the team here at Balance have worked with for many years. So he's a trusted expert, really great guy, and we're excited to have him here this evening. He is going to be running through what we will call the basics of Medicare, but what you'll see is there's a whole lot of moving parts. There are things you need to be aware of, potential roadblocks or, tripping points. And so really, as Kevin goes through this presentation, just keep in mind a couple of things. One, this is all very general and this is meant to be educational in nature, right? So, make sure that you're asking questions and that, we will do our best to answer them in a general way. But if we want a more detailed follow-up, we can do that together. We can do it with Kevin or any number of ways. So let's try to make sure we're focused on the educational side of this. And two, with that, please, please, please ask questions, right? I know that Kevin, he's an expert in this field. He'll have a great presentation, but we always believe that it goes better when it's not just one person talking. So ask questions as Kevin goes along. Shaun and I will try to jump in as we see questions that we get a lot from clients. But it should be a good evening tonight. We're excited about it. And without further ado, Kevin, I'm going to kick it over to you and let you maybe give a little bit of quick intro background to yourself, and then we'll kick right into the presentation.
All right, very good. Hey, everybody. My name is Kevin Shay. I'm a retired CPA, and I've been helping people navigate the Medicare maze, as I would call it, for since 2012. 2012 was about the time when the company I was working for was bought out in a hostile takeover, and the headquarters is going to be moved to Memphis, Tennessee. And my wife said, "We're not moving to Memphis." So that's where when I started my insurance career, and I've been doing seminars for some of the largest physician groups in the Austin area for quite some time. And I'm 68 years old. I've been on Medicare going on 3 years. I'll be 69 in April. That's almost surreal to think about. I'm that
It doesn't
freaking
look like it,
old.
Kevin. Doesn't look like it,
Yeah,
Kevin.
I look good for 80, I'm told. So I'm primarily based in Austin, Texas, but during the pandemic, like a lot of people, bought a second home in Florida. And if you're familiar with the Austin, Texas summers, you understand why we go to Florida in the summers. But I also have my license in Tennessee, Alabama, Nevada, wherever my clients eventually move to. I would just get my reciprocal license in that state to continue helping them out. And before we get started, like Bob talked about, this is strictly an educational seminar. Medicare rules, when we advertise something as educational, Medicare does not allow me to discuss specific Medicare Advantage plans or drug plans, because then that becomes a sales presentation. And that's totally unacceptable to Medicare. So I've got quite a few slides to cover. We'll cover them pretty rapidly. But as Bob talked about, these seminars are really more informative if they're interactive. So as we go along, if you've got a question, ask. If I'm going to address it in another slide downstream, I'll just say, hold on, and we'll wait till we get to that. Um, so again, if there's any, and I know we're going to go through these slides quickly, it can be confusing, but I'm open to meet with people one-on-one. So if you want to talk about your personal situation, maybe you don't want to bring it up here, that's perfectly fine. I'm open. So let's talk about what we're going to learn today. Basically, what Medicare is, how to enroll in Medicare, what are the options to receiving your Medicare coverage, how to customize your Medicare coverage to fit your personal needs, your budget, your lifestyle. So again, a lot of stuff to cover. So Medicare Parts A and B, typically this is considered traditional Medicare or original Medicare. And what do I mean by that? Well, the Johnson administration in 1965 passed the Medicare Act. And so Medicare includes two pieces, Medicare Part A and Part B. And together, well, we'll go into more detail with both of these, but together they call this original Medicare or traditional Medicare, again, because the Johnson administration, when they passed in 1965, that's all there was. It was very basic. So, so there's two, we'll go into more detail about the two pieces. Medicare Part A is basically, think about it as basic nursing, room and board. So inpatient hospitalizations, skilled nursing care, home health care, rehab, and hospice care, which we don't want to talk about. And then Medicare Part B is your doctors, therapies, x-rays, lab work, chemo, radiation. It's the other piece of Medicare. And together, Part A and Part B, like I say, is called original Medicare, traditional Medicare, and that forms your basis for your medical coverage when you turn 65.
Okay.
So when it comes to premiums and costs, when you just have your Medicare card, your red, white, and blue card, there is no premium for Part A if you have 40 quarters of work experience. You paid into the Medicare system over the years, so there is no premium for Part A. But there are costs associated with Medicare Part A. For example, if somebody has their Medicare card and they're admitted to the hospital, there's almost a $1,700 deductible. And this is per benefit period. And so let's say, for example, I'm climbing a tree, cutting branches down, I fall off, hit my head, go to the emergency room and get admitted, I would owe almost $1,700 out of my pocket. And then if somebody's in the hospital more than 60 days, up to 90 days, you would tack on to that a $419 per day copay. And highly unlikely they're going to be in hospital more than 90 days. But just to emphasize, Medicare by itself does not pay for everything. There's an $838 per day copay. So, and then say I'm in the hospital for three or 4 days. I'm well enough to be discharged, but not go home. Maybe I've had hip replacement and I need to go to rehab. That's the skilled nursing facility. Or, for example, had a gentleman who had a pneumonia. He was in hospital for the week, laying in bed. He was well enough to be discharged, but not go home because he wasn't breathing well enough. He wasn't walking well enough. So they sent him to a rehab facility. So Medicare pays for the first 20 days of a rehab facility, a recovery center. And then beyond 20 days up to 100 days, then there's a $209 per day copay. And people ask, well, why would I be in rehab for that long? Well, I've got several clients that had severe strokes and think about having to learn how to walk, talk, feed yourself, clothe yourself, so you could easily spend more than 20 days in a rehab facility.
Yep. And this is one thing that I always like to point out to folks, right? And we have a separate conversation about long-term care insurance to cover these longer-term health needs. And a lot of people may get confused and say, hey, well, Medicare covers long-term care coverage. And Kevin, to your point here, they will for up to 100 days, some part of it. But after that, it's fully on the individual for long-term care insurance or long-term care coverage needs, correct?
Exactly. And I've got so many of my 65 plus clients who don't think about that until it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
It's like driving your car, get into a wreck, and then say without automobile insurance, and then saying, "Hey, I need to get insurance." Well, it's too late. It's too
Yep.
late. So the time to start thinking about that is way before your 65th birthday.
Yep. Yep. Okay. And then part B, this is where there's some different premiums, and this is based on your adjusted gross income, right? The whole calculation. And this is something, Kevin, just as an aside, not to jump in and overtake here, but this is a situation here, these part B premiums, where we at Balance, and specifically Shaun, I just shared this with you and with the team earlier or last week, that we try to do a lot of work to look at our clients' adjusted gross income, especially when they're in retirement and taking retirement distributions and saying, hey, IRA distributions or Roth conversions, or, when to turn on Social Security, any of these things, because we want to try to avoid the increases that come from having adjusted gross income be too high. And it can be anywhere from like 87 a month extra to as high as like $500-600 a month extra, correct?
Exactly. And like to your point, you don't want people making a mistake. I've had one gentleman anticipating retiring. He wanted to pay off his mortgage because he wanted low bills in retirement. Well, he took money out of an IRA to pay off his mortgage. Well, that put him
Mm,
over the income limit. And now he's paying what they call an income related monthly adjustment, and in addition to the Part B premium. And you don't want to make mistakes like that.
yep. Yep. Absolutely. So, and then, so just jump into the slide here, and folks, just as an FYI, Kevin put this presentation. I'm kind of jumping around, so we might jump back and forth from slides too, as there are things that come up and as questions or other things come up. So again, please drop your questions in as you have them. But Kevin, I'll let you take back driving again.
Okay, so Medicare Part A and Part B, what does it not cover? So Medicare Part A and Part B, as I said, Medicare A is hospitalization. Part B is your doctor's therapies, x-rays, your prescription medications that you're going down to CVS or Walgreens for. That's Part D of Medicare. So that's a completely different part of Medicare. And that's probably actually the most complicated part of Medicare to try to explain. Medicare doesn't cover routine dental, and we're talking about going in for cleanings, fillings, root canals, things like that. It doesn't cover routine vision. It does cover vision when it becomes a health issue, glaucoma, cataracts. Medicare covers it. But for your routine vision to get your glasses changed, not. Hearing, it doesn't cover hearing aids, doesn't cover your annual physical exams. It doesn't cover over-the-counter items, gym memberships, and like Bob talked about, it does not cover long-term care or custodial care.
Got it. Okay. So just moving along, I like this flow chart a lot, Kevin. I thought this was helpful just to kind of see how things bounce around. So if you could walk us through this, I think this is a really helpful chart. And again, just as an FYI for everyone, one, we're recording this, so we'll be able to send this out. And two, if there's something like this that you want us to share, right? Like we can share all of this as well. So you don't have to feel like you have to be taking notes feverishly or anything like that. We can follow up with any of this information that you may find helpful.
Yeah. So this is really where people get tripped up. So Medicare Part A and Part B, we covered that, and we talked about the costs associated with Parts A and Part B that Medicare doesn't pay everything. So, and then we talked about Part D of Medicare, that's the drug plan. And then, so the purpose of this slide is to talk about options to limit your out-of-pocket costs. So what I did when I turned 65, I enrolled in Medicare Part A and Part B. I've got a separate drug plan, and then I've got what's called a Medicare supplement. They also call these Medigap plans. I say this a supplement is through another private insurance company. I pay about $113. They're pretty inexpensive in Texas. It picks up virtually all the costs not covered by Medicare Part A and Part B. So just to give you an example how that works in real life, in February, I've been dealing with a hernia. It popped out late at night, went to the emergency room. They got it resolved. I met with two surgeons to talk about my options. Medicare picked up all my costs except for the Part B deductible of $257. So I personally like this option. The national average is that 53% of people are on Medicare Advantage plans. So that's Part C of Medicare. So think of it as Medicare, the federal government outsourcing to a private insurance company their health plan. And the federal government pays the insurance company, think Aetna, Humana, Blue Cross, United Healthcare. They all have a contract with Medicare. They have to cover everything that Medicare does. And when the federal government pays the insurance company to take care of you on the order of about $10,000 a year, they can offer a full all-in-one plan that includes your Part A and Part B. It includes your drug plan. Most of them include your drug plans. And they also include dental, vision, hearing, gym membership. It's quite remarkable the amount of benefits that these plans offer.
Okay.
And Kevin, just for a little bit of clarity, as a question would be, in that Medicare supplement insurance before, we kind of had some scary numbers about $209 a day after 21 days, $1,700 out of pocket expense. Does the Medicare supplement insurance cover those additional costs? Is that the purpose of getting supplemental? Is to
Exactly.
eliminate
So,
some of those hidden
exactly.
costs?
The supplement is going to pay for everything that Medicare does not cover, as long as it's medically necessary. Medicare is going to, and Medicare approves that procedure. The supplement's going to pick up everything except for the Part B deductible of $257.
Mm. Got it.
So here, really just trying to do a side by side on what Medicare supplements cover versus an Advantage plan. So again, I'm in a Medicare supplement plan G, and we'll go over those different types of plans. All the supplement does is help pay the costs that Medicare does not cover. And then I've got a separate drug plan. So basically, I've got three pieces. I've got my Medicare card, my red, white, blue card. I've got a drug plan card, and I've got my Medicare supplement card. For me, it works quite well because, again, I'm in Austin part of the time. I'm in Florida part of the time. I have my surgery in Florida. I've got my primary care doctors in Austin. Kind of weird, but that works for me. On a Medicare Advantage plan, again, this is Part C of Medicare. These are offered by private insurance companies. Think Aetna, Humana, Blue Cross, United Healthcare. They all have a contract with Medicare. They combine Medicare A and B. Most of them include a drug plan. And then they also limit your out-of-pocket expense. Most of these plans do not charge a premium compared to me paying a separate premium for my supplement. Most Advantage plans do not charge a premium. Why? Because the government is paying the insurance company roughly $10,000 to take care of you. Now, with that, it doesn't mean that there are no costs associated with Advantage plans. For example, these plans are basically you don't incur costs until you start to use services. For example, if you go to a specialist, maybe it's a $50 copay. If you go to the emergency room like I did, maybe it's a $150 copay. If I need an MRI, maybe it's a $200 copay. So these plans are great for people who do not have a lot of chronic conditions or have a lot of medical needs. And we'll go through the pros and cons of these two options towards the end of this.
And real quick, just as a clarification, Ryan, if there's any questions or anything coming in that makes sense, feel free to stop us. But just point of clarification. So whether you are in kind of option one here, which is, the original Medicare and supplements in Part D, or in Part C, because you're still paying for that Part B, and this is something that I'm learning here too, because you're still paying that Part B, that income related Medicare adjustment amount still applies regardless which option you're choosing here, correct?
Exactly. Thanks for the clarification. Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Either option, you're going to pay your Part B premium.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So we'll go over
And
here
so-
to
so when it
the
comes-
checkerboard here.
Yeah. So when it comes to Medicare supplements, there's 10 different plans. And of course, to make it even more confusing, they let them. Not only do we have Medicare Parts, A, B, C, and D, but then we have supplement plans, A through N. You don't have to worry about 10 different plans. The reason is The Plan A is for people under age 65 who qualify for Medicare after 2 years of being on Social Security.
Okay.
Plan C and F are not available for people who turn 65 after January 2020, like me. So really we're down to, and then each state, it just seems that each state has different plans that are highlighted and offered by insurance companies. In Texas, the Plan G and the Plan N are the most popular plans. Again, I'm in the Plan G. It picks up 100% of what Medicare does not pay, except for the Part B deductible, which is $257.
Okay. And is this, so I noticed that it's their start and their high deductible plans. Does that have anything to tie into like funding an HSA or anything like that? Or is that completely an independent conversation?
That's an independent conversation. In 15 years, I've not had anybody. Let's take that back. I've had one person enroll in a high deductible plan, because when you compare the cost on a Plan G and the Plan N, which virtually cover everything, the premiums on a high deductible plan are maybe half the cost, but you're going to have to incur $2,700 of medical expenses before the plan starts to pick up anything. To me, the risk benefit
Yep.
ratio just doesn't work for me. And
Yep.
I'm kind of analytical, being a retired CPA.
Sure. Yeah, of course. And so, but so from a, but so that's the contribution side, right? Like normally when I think of, high deductible plans, I think of contributing to an HSA. But just to flip it and make sure everybody understands, if you have an HSA that you have dollars in there, what of those can you use, if any, can you use to pay some of these different Medicare premiums, Kevin? Whether it's Part B or
So I'm not sure about the premiums. I'm not a tax guy, but I believe you can use you go to the doctor, you have a copay, you can use to get reimbursed. You're paying for your medications. You use your HSA to pay for your medications.
okay.
I'm not
Perfect.
sure about the premiums.
Yep. Well, that's something we'll double check on there. So, any other comments on this slide here, Kevin, or any questions, Ryan, that we want to address that seem to fit?
Yeah, we have one question came in. If I'm 65 but still working and covered by health insurance, do I need to sign up for Medicare?
Okay, I mean, we can address it now, or we can address it later on. But here's the deal. So when I turned 65, I was still on my wife's employer insurance. So whether you are actually working or you're on your spouse's employer insurance, you can delay indefinitely enrolling in Medicare until such time as you decide to retire. So I stayed on my wife's employer insurance until I was 66, and then I decided to transition to Medicare. There's no penalty. I didn't have to sign up for Medicare when I was 65, and we'll get to another slide that explains that special enrollment period further down, and maybe that fully answers your question.
Awesome. And then we had
You can use HSA dollars to pay Medicare premiums. So
There
you
we
can
go.
use the HSA card to make the premium payment, or pay it out of your Social Security and then reimburse yourself.
Okay, great.
Perfect. Thank you, Shaun. Okay. So I'm gonna pop over to the next slide here. And again, these are busy. There's a lot on here that Kevin, I know you're not going to go through kind of every word here and everything, but again, folks, don't worry about taking all these notes down or whatever. We can send out whatever you need as a follow-up. These are just guidelines to help us have this conversation here this evening.
Yep. So really just trying to consider, again, this is what trips most people up, not understanding there's two separate options on how to receive your Medicare, either through traditional Medicare, and there's pros and cons. You see any doctor in the United States who has a contract with Medicare. I don't need any referrals. I don't need any prior authorization. When I needed the hernia surgery, I went to 2 different surgeons. I didn't have to call Medicare and say, can I go to these surgeons? Do I have permission to get the surgery? None of that. On the flip side, on Medicare Advantage plans, and they're referred to as managed care plans for a very good reason. And I've got, like I say, 53% of beneficiaries are on Advantage plans. They work well for a lot of people. But for example, I had one client in Houston that needed a pacemaker. His doctor had to get prior authorization on his Advantage plan before they could go further and have that done. I had another gentleman just last October who had prostate cancer. He had to get approval to have a particular procedure done. So the Medicare Advantage plans, while they have a lot of great benefits, just remember, and they typically they don't have any premium associated with them. They do have some restrictions, and you just have to understand what those restrictions are and do they fit in with your lifestyle.
Got it. Okay.
And this is just more of a continuation. People ask, does Medicare cover people while traveling out of the United States? That's a very popular question. Well, Medicare, original Medicare, does not cover you out of the country. But the Medicare supplement that I pay for pays for emergency and urgent coverage when I'm traveling out of the country.
Okay, so that's back on here. So that was the bottom line on this slide, correct, Kevin? Where
Correct.
this highlighted 1G here, 80%. This is something that if you are traveling quite a bit, I know I have plenty of clients that all the time I live vicariously through them, right? They're going on, river cruises and doing all this cool stuff all over the world. And so making sure that they have some sort of coverage in a foreign travel emergency, I think is a really good point, just to make sure that you're kind of overturning that stone, so to speak, when you're choosing these options.
Exactly. So,
And then,
and
Kevin,
then
aren't there, if you someone that's going to do that, you're going to have that active lifestyle, aren't there like temporary policies that you could put in place that would give you more coverage, or kind of tailored to people that may be doing that a little bit more?
yeah, when my wife always handles the travel plans. So she makes the travel plans, and she generally gets travel insurance, which also covers emergency and urgent coverage just in case, because maybe it's not urgent or emergency coverage. Maybe I need a prescription that I forgot and I need to get that included in another country. So, and then of course, travel insurance will also cover in case your trip gets disrupted or canceled. You get some help there.
Sure.
So my wife's not here to explain that, but we'll.
Okay.
So
So
option one, here's the positives and the negatives. So the positives, no network of doctors. So again, you can see any doctor in the United States. Plans are standardized. So here's, again, for anybody that's, even if you're in another state, I can run quotes for you for a Medicare supplement and send them to you. It takes me 5 minutes. Be happy to do that for you. But these plans are standardized, which means if we go back to that chart, a plan G, no matter what insurance company offers a plan G, it's the same exact coverage. What's the difference? So the difference is, just like if you bought automobile insurance and got quotes with the same exact coverage, you're going to get 5 different premium quotes. And why is that? It really comes down to how old the plan. That really gets into a much deeper conversation, but it has to do with how these plans market themselves. For example, United Healthcare markets through AARP. They're paying a brand fee to AARP, but their premiums are a little bit higher. And the newer the plan tends to have lower premiums because they're coming into the market trying to capture market share. I generally don't advise going with the lowest cost plan, I usually stick with the brand name companies, Aetna, Humana, United Healthcare, Blue Cross. That way, because as you know, is the law of large numbers. The bigger pool of people that are in that plan, if you got a couple people that have chronic severe conditions and run up the medical claims, it doesn't disrupt the whole plan as much. So I tend to
Mhm.
stay with the larger brand name insurance companies for that reason. And then
Kevin,
these are little managed care. Like I say, when I had my surgery, I went to two different surgeons. I liked one, I didn't like the other. So you got a lot more freedom. Most plans cover emergencies, uh, travel emergencies, so you don't have to worry about that. The issue, as I get older, these plans, at least in Texas, are based on attained age. As I get older, the premiums are going to go up about 3 or 4% a year. Not that that's a big deal. That's basically in line with inflation. However, there's a second way that these premiums can be increased, and it's based on the claims experience of that group of people in that plan. And these companies try to keep about an 85% gross profit margin. And if their loss ratio exceeds that, what do? They just increase the premiums. So over
Mhm.
time, I just talked to a lady today. Her premium went since 2017 until now, went from about $98 a month to $260 a month. So at
Wow.
some point, we'll want to shop these plans just like you would your automobile insurance. The only qualification is to switch your Medicare supplement, we have to go through medical underwriting, which is just answering about a dozen medical questions. And then it'll go to an underwriter. And if you got some pre-existing conditions that the medical underwriter sees as high risk, for example, MS, Parkinson's, have you had cancer in the last 2 years? They may just hold up their hands, go, no, we're not going to underwrite you. And we may have to wait till that 2 year period passes. So that's the negative side is the premiums will increase. They don't have the extra benefits such as dental, vision, hearing, gym membership. My gym is I walk about an hour and a half every day, most every day if it's not raining. I play pickleball when it's not the annual enrollment period, 1 or 2 hours a day. And I ride my bike. That's my gym. So I really don't need the gym. I've got a separate dental plan. I don't feel that I need vision because if Medicare covers if it's glaucoma or cataracts, and I don't wear glasses. So that's the option that I chose, option number
Okay.
one. And then
and Kevin,
option
when
number two, yeah, go
Kevin,
ahead.
when choosing a supplemental plan, is it important to kind of know what medications you're on, what health provider you use? Like if I'm with Ohio Health versus the Cleveland Clinic, are there some providers that may not provide service? If I really like going to Dr. Gavlak, do I have to make sure he's in that network? Are those important questions when I'm deciding which provider I use for my supplement?
So that's not important for the supplement because remember your health plan is parts A and part B, traditional Medicare, and you can see any doctor in the United States. So if I need to go to MD Anderson, if I need to go Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, I go because I'm on traditional Medicare. But to your point, when we talk about Medicare Advantage plans, MD Anderson in Houston does not have a contract with any Medicare Advantage plan. It
Mm.
doesn't mean you can't see them, but they're going to have to take a look at your Advantage plan and then see if they're willing to accept the payments from your Advantage plan. And then for Mayo Clinic, who my wife is going to, they actually send out a letter to their patients who are turning 65, advising them and making sure they understand Mayo Clinic does not accept any Advantage plan.
Mm.
So, so when we're talking about traditional Medicare and the supplement, we really don't have to be concerned about doctors as long as the doctor accepts or is contracted with Medicare, we're good to go. When it comes to Medicare Advantage plans, now we have to be very concerned. Does your doctor accept the Advantage plan? Are they in network? And there's two types of Advantage plans, HMOs and PPOs. HMOs have a very restrictive network. You have to select a primary care doctor. You have to get referrals to specialists. You have to stay in network. Personally, I don't like the restricted nature of HMOs. PPOs, you can stay in network. You don't need to select a primary care doctor. You don't need referrals to specialists. They have a national network. So if the best doctor you want to see is in Houston, Dallas, in Florida, in Vermont, a PPO is the way to go.
Well, and I'll just, just again, Kevin, I'm learning a lot through this conversation. So first of all, I appreciate, everything so far. Just in what I'm hearing, it sounds like there's a lot more flexibility with option one. There's a lot more protection in the coverage, I would say, in a way, right? That you can go to whatever doctors. You don't need referrals. You don't need, approvals, these different things. While it sounds like there is a place for Advantage kind of leaning towards option one, and that, as you as the professional, you even said that's what you're on. So I think it's a deeper conversation than just that, but generally I'm kind of hearing that kind of traditional Medicare plans with the proper supplements based on what you need is kind of the direction we're kind of leaning towards generally. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, so again, as a CPA, I try to be independent. I try to be agnostic
Yes.
and give people information.
Hmm.
And as they ask questions, more probing questions, well, what if, then it gets to, well, I don't like this option or I don't like that option. I met with one gentleman 5 separate times before on the fifth time he goes, okay, I get it. And this is the plan that I want. And this is what so that's where I want everybody to get to because this is an important decision.
Hmm.
And
Yep. Yep.
sometimes you can't go back and forth all the time. You can, but with qualification, if you go back, let's say you start out with an Advantage plan at 2, 3, 4 years, we say, I want to go back to traditional Medicare and pick up a supplement because I think that's more financially sound. But now we'd have to answer the medical questions. If you got pre-existing conditions, MS,
Mm.
Parkinson's, you got cancer, these supplements are just not going to accept you. So the best time to enroll in a Medicare supplement is when you first enroll in Medicare because there are no medical questions.
Mm. Got it. Got it. Okay, so that kind of leads us into the next slide, which is, kind of ready to sign up. And I know on these next few slides, this gets to the question that we had earlier, just about timing of signing up for Medicare and everything like that. So I think going to SSA.gov is going to give you a plethora of options, but I also love this slide here, Kevin, that just kind of, gives some good visual, right, of how this works and the timing.
Yeah, so exactly. So let's say your birth month, let's say you're turning 65 this December, and it's your intention to enroll in Medicare. Maybe you're not planning to work past 65. So you've got 3 months before your birth month, which would be September, October, November. If you submit an application during those 3 months, your Medicare will start December 1st. So if you wait till December and submit an application, your Medicare will start January and so on. You just don't want to miss this 7 month window. So whether or not you plan on working past 65 or retire, I always suggest people, hey, let's have a conversation because so many people don't realize that Medicare may be the better, lower cost option than their employer plan.
Hmm.
And I meet with a lot of people who are on small employers, 20 or more employers, and those plans tend to be $400, $500, $600 a month. Well, heck, if you're below that threshold and you're paying a Part B premium of $185, and maybe your supplement is another, $110, and a drug plan, which, you're coming in at much lower cost than your employer plan. So
Hmm.
whether or not you plan to retire or not, it may be worth your time to at least consider both options But then again, if we go on to the next slide,
Yep.
Yeah,
if you just
Kevin, real quick with that, is it best if I know I'm going to sign up to go on SSA.gov and do this myself, or how does someone go about doing so? Is it contact a broker, contact you? How does someone go about saying, okay, I'm ready to commit? Let me
At
yeah,
least part
so
A, right? Maybe kind of separated. Like part A, I've always understood like you should sign up for it at your 65th birthday, regardless whether you need it or not. Um, because there's no cost unless you use it, right?
well,
But and then you can maybe tie that to Sean's question for what's the best way to go about signing up for Part A, Part B, supplements like that, and kind of separate the pieces.
yeah, so enrolling in Medicare, you go through the Social Security website, so SSA.gov, and
That's
you would
this one right
log.
here, folks.
Yep. So you would log into your Medicare account. Hopefully you've already set up your Medicare account, and then you would submit an application for Medicare Part A and or Part B. So Medicare Part A, to your point, people think, well, I have to sign up for Medicare at least Part A. And the only time that I say do not enroll in any part of Medicare is if your employer plan is a high deductible and you're contributing to an HSA, because the
Mm,
IRS doesn't like that, and they will penalize you if you are in a high deductible plan and contributing to an HSA. So in that example, you're going to work past age 65. Do not enroll in Medicare Part A and Part B. The vast majority of people will go ahead and enroll in Part A because they're not contributing to an HSA. It really doesn't do them a whole lot of good, but it gets them in the system. And as long as they're working and have employer insurance, the employer insurance will be primary, Medicare will be secondary, and Medicare pays so very little compared to private insurance. Not likely the Medicare Part A is going to do them a whole lot of good, but at least they're in the system. They have their Medicare card, their Medicare number, and their Part A number. So,
got it. Okay.
and then if you're sure that you're going to continue working past age 65. So let's say I had one gentleman, he was like 75 years old and he decided to hang it up at that point. And I got to give it to him. So at that point, you have an 8-month enrollment period. So that would be 8 months past the end of your group health coverage. Most people won't enroll in Cobra because it's expensive. You're probably looking at, $600 or $700 a month to Cobra. Why Cobra when you can enroll in Medicare for $185, pick up a supplement and drug plan, or consider your other options on a Medicare Advantage plan? So again, very few people take advantage of this 8-month enrollment period. The only people that I've seen had one or two people, and they had sold a business or a property, and that was going to put them in this high income, and they were going to have to pay their Part B, very high Part B
Mm,
premium. And it's a 2-year look back. So they were going to kind of wait out not having to pay that real high income related monthly adjustment on Medicare for at least the 8 months. So that saved them a little bit of money.
got it.
Yeah, so
Got it.
there's
And
as you can see, there's all kinds of strategies, all kinds of more complicated questions that we can get into. Again, I'm open to meeting with anybody. We can do a Zoom meeting for 45 minutes to an hour. It'll help clarify a lot of the stuff. Again, I understand we're going through a lot of information, and as soon as we hang up, you're going to go, "Why didn't I ask that question?"
yeah, well, and this is an opportunity because as we wrap up here this evening, there's a few more slides that just kind of walking through just logging into SSA.gov and where to click and all of that stuff, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. So, Ryan, are there any questions that came in that we want to address before we get to some of these kind of final items for the evening?
Yep, we've got a few questions. So first one is, if I sign up for an Advantage plan, then find a doctor I want who doesn't accept my plan, can I drop the Advantage plan and go straight Medicare? Which I think we covered the drawbacks of, but if you want to recap those, Kevin.
Yeah, so before anybody would roll an Advantage plan, again, I'm agnostic. I do, here's your options on traditional Medicare supplement drug plan. Here's your options on a Medicare Advantage plan. I run your medications because on an Advantage plan, you have to accept the drug plan that's in that particular Advantage plan. And
Mm,
then you have to look at the doctors that are in network. I always make sure that all the doctors are in network because that's important, especially important on an HMO. On a PPO, yeah, you might be able to go out of network, but you always pay a higher cost to go out of network. So again, if you go Advantage plan, it's always better to stay in network, even on a PPO plan.
got it.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
think on top of that too, there's also if they go to the Advantage plan and then 6 months later try to go back to the Medicare supplement plan, they could have to deal with those health questions, right?
Yeah, so Medicare gives people a 12-month free look.
Okay.
And let me
Mm,
explain that. So when I turned 65, when I transitioned to Medicare, I enrolled in a Medicare supplement. So let's say 4 or 5 years from now that the premium for that supplement is $500 a month. I'm exaggerating. And I go, well, I don't want to pay that. And now I've got a medical condition that really won't allow me to move to another supplement because they have another cheaper supplement because they have the medical underwriting. One option is to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan. Medicare allows people a 12-month free look to enroll in an Advantage plan. So it's basically risk-free. So I can enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan for up to 12 months. At any time within that first 12 months, I decide I want to go back to traditional Medicare. I can go back, pick up a drug plan and a supplement without any medical questions.
mm. Okay.
On a,
Interesting. That is that a one-time thing? Is that
it,
something, or
it,
is that something they could do?
it's
Got
a one time government pass, you know.
yeah. One time get out of
So
jail free card or whatever we want to call it
exactly,
there.
exactly.
Then
So
Kevin,
let's say you
if it's
start out
been
with a
longer than that
Medicare.
12 months, can I go back and I just have to go through the medical questions?
Exactly,
Got
exactly.
it. Okay.
And that kind of scares people, but my experience, probably 90% of the people will pass through underwriting without any issues. One gentleman, we submitted at least 4 or 5 applications with different insurance carriers because each insurance carrier has its own medical underwriting standards until one accepted them.
Mm,
Hey, Kevin,
got it.
does that
Some
work? If I sign up for a supplement, can I go to Advantage? When and how can I do that?
So normally so if I wanted to go to a Medicare Advantage plan today, I would do it during this period of time, the annual enrollment period, which started October 15th last week, ends December 7th. I would just switch to an Advantage plan. It would automatically cancel out my drug plan, and then I would call the supplement and cancel it effective January 1st. So I could do that today. Generally, you do that during this annual enrollment period.
Got it. And that's why you're so busy during this time of year, which also I just want to say thank you again for especially during your busy season for hopping on here this evening with us to go through all this. So and I'm just trying to put up some other screens here so folks can see kind of visually what you'll see as you go through ssa.gov. Really helpful here. Ryan, did we get another question pop up there?
Yep. We have another question here. So this individual said, like Kevin, I'm 68 years old. What should I be aware of during open enrollment? I'm currently in a supplement plan. Is the supplement insurer responsible for letting me know the upcoming rates for 2026 and so forth? And then as a follow-up to that one, are there any Part D insurers with no monthly cost for a premium?
Yeah, so the Medicare supplements generally they have an annual rate increase, and you'll usually get notified about a month or two before that rate increase goes into effect. And then, depending on your state, they have for Texas, most supplement plans are based on a attained age. So when I reach age 69 in April, I'll get another rate increase of about 2 or 3%. I know that going in. And then depending on your state, some states are community rated, so they're not based on attained age. They just throw men and women in the same pot. They give them one rate. And then there's other plans based on issue age. Florida is an issue age. So if I enrolled in Florida, I would go in at age 68. The rate increases would be lower, not based on age. So it really depends on what state you're in, exactly how those premiums are going to increase. The premiums in Florida are about double what they are in Austin. So that's why I enrolled in an Austin plan. And then as far as your drug plans, it's very, very simple. Go to Medicare.gov. There's a plan finder. You put in your zip code, you put in your medications, and then that tool, all the insurance companies input their premiums, copays, deductible, and most importantly, the drug plan formulary, which is the list of covered medications. So if I went in and put in my 2 generic medications, it would come up in Austin, the lowest cost plan is 0 premium. And the copays for my generic medications are 0. And people ask, well, how in the world does an insurance company offer a drug plan for 0 and make any money? Well, they're being paid by Medicare. So that is actually very simple. I could send you some slides. If you go on YouTube and Google Medicare Plan Finder, Medicare.gov has some real good YouTube videos on how to use it.
Got it.
And we had another question just come in here, Kevin. If I qualify for Medicare, but my spouse is much younger than me and still working for a company who offers insurance, do I have to clarify which insurance I want to be my primary?
Yeah, so you would decide at that point, is it better to stay on your wife's employer insurance or is it better to go to Medicare?
Well, and Kevin, I'll just say, I'm much younger than my wife, so it could be me, the husband, that's still working, right? Like that's
Exactly.
so it could be, either way there. But yeah, I think that Kevin, to your point, right? It's just a math problem of, which one is. Now let's presume, I guess this question is maybe asking like, hey, I'm staying on my spouse's that's still working. Does that mean that even in that case that it's secondary? Because you said earlier that Medicare is secondary to employer coverage, correct?
Correct. So I was assuming that this person is staying on the wife's employer insurance, but has not enrolled in Medicare. Is that?
Or if they do, so if they do enroll in Medicare, would they be secondary, or is there a way to say, hey, I want my coverage as the older spouse on
Okay.
Medicare. I want Medicare to be primary and this to be secondary, or will it automatically be the employer is first and Medicare is second?
If it's an employer, more than 20 employees, 20 or more, the employer plan is always going to be primary. And at that point, it does not make sense to enroll in Medicare Part B, because now you're
Mm,
paying a Part B premium and you're really not getting any benefit out of it.
yep, got it. Okay, Ryan, did we get another one or?
Just someone reminding you you're getting a year older tomorrow, so they're trying to help you celebrate a little early here.
That is true. That is true. So I will be a year older tomorrow. So mine will be attained age as of tomorrow, Kevin. I'll be an extra one there for any future Medicare needs for me. So the last couple slides here, I think there's some reference to this request for employment information. This is just if you're losing your job-based coverage, you have to submit, or your employer has to fill this out. Is that correct, Kevin?
Exactly. So you would get this form and you would fill out the top part of the form with your name, social security, contact information, and then send it to your employer. The employer would fill out the bottom portion of it. And then when you submit your application for Medicare, you would upload this form. And
Mm,
so what that does is notify Medicare you've had continuous healthcare coverage past
yep.
age 65. There is no penalty. And so you then you just go on and get your Medicare after that.
Got it. Okay. So, and I'm just going to wrap it up with this slide here. And of course, if there's more questions, we're willing to stick on a little bit longer. And this slide says, why meet with us? I would say specifically for you, Kevin, why meet with you, right? Just knowing, kind of the independent between balance and with Simple Medicare, right? But, I think, Kevin, first of all, thank you so much for being generous with your time and being on here this evening with us, with, our clients, with our team members, and being here to just generously answer these questions and walk through all of your knowledge. I think on behalf of the Balance team and for all the folks that were part of this, and we'll watch it, right, because we do get a lot of folks that watch this after the fact. But Kevin, I'll let you kind of give your spiel on, hey, you can meet with you and everything. But I think that for everybody on this call, if you want somebody to dive into this a little bit deeper with you in your personal situation, I know Kevin, depending on the state, would be happy to help and give you some direction. And of course, we're always here as well to give direction and to help you make informed choices for your future. So, Kevin, I'll let you wrap it up here.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm perfectly fine if you've got a trusted advisor, insurance broker, agent that you trust. By all means, just if you want a second opinion, I'm here. So all I would say again, I'm a retired CPA. I'm used to being independent, objective, and I just try to stay agnostic, give you information, let the information fall where it may, and then you decide what's best for you. I don't do sales, high pressure sales meetings. And just be aware, a younger agent is going to have a completely different perspective. And I know this from personal experience because I was there, and to an agent who's over 65. And just go ask any agent over 65, what option did you choose? And that'll tell the truth. And so again, I'm up front. I'll give you all the information you need to make an informed decision, because again, I treat this very seriously, and I want to make sure that whatever you select is what you want and not what you think you have to have, or not what your brother, uncle, cousin, next door neighbor, coworker says was best for them, because that may be best for them. It may not be best for you.
Yep. Well said, Kevin. Love it. That's the same approach we take with folks, right? Like we just want to be, that's exactly what we wanted to put on this webinar too, right? We want to be a trusted resource to give unbiased, helpful advice to empower people to make decisions on their own and not put them in a position where they feel like they're pressured into doing any one thing or another. So Kevin, appreciate the insight. And again, I'm going to wrap it up just by saying, thank you so much, Kevin, on behalf of the entire team at Balance Wealth, all of our clients, the folks that were here. Really appreciate your time this evening. And, I will certainly follow up if there's any other questions. Ryan, is there anything else before we kind of wrap it up for this evening, or is that it?
Nope, that's it.
All right. So, Kevin, again, thank you so much. It was awesome. I personally learned a ton. I think I speak on behalf of Ryan and Shaun as well. Shaun, any other closing remarks or anything? Ryan, anything to add before we close it up?
No, thanks, Kevin.
All right, very good. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening, and we'll see you all again soon.